I'm so excited. I got an incredible friend here today. He's an author, a writer, a composer, you name it, he's doing it. He's a professor. And he's just penned his very first book, Stickman, a coming-of-age novel. And he's going to talk to you about today. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mr. Richard Rossi. Hey, what's up, man?
Good to see you again.
Oh, man, it's so good to see you. It's always good to see you. I am excited about your book, man.
Oh, thank you, Phil. Thank you very much.
Not only just about the book, but also the soundtrack that accompanies it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, I know you, and we all need to know just a little bit of your history. Where are you from?
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up there, and like Jeremiah in Stickman, he grows up in Pennsylvania, so a lot of the things he encounters growing up were things about Pittsburgh. Like he loved Roberto Clemente, and I love Roberto Clemente. He was a great baseball player for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and
I love it.
He loves this amusement park called Westview Park, and I actually grew up right by Westview Park. It had a roller coaster and a haunted house and all that stuff. Yeah, so there's a lot of Pittsburgh stuff in the book for anybody that has ever been there. They might recognize a few of the things, certain things they eat in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, what was your childhood like growing up in Pittsburgh?
Well, it was really interesting. My dad was a jazz guitarist. He was a musician. And we lived on the upper floor of a music studio. So there were always people coming in for music lessons. And I was the oldest of 5 kids. We all played music. And we played in the bars and the clubs. We were like the Jacksons of Pittsburgh.
Serious?
We played as a family in all the bars and nightclubs and stuff.
I love it. So, what happened? So, did you always have in your heart that you wanted to write, or was it the music? Growing up playing the instruments and stuff, you started pitting songs and things like that?
Yeah, my writing started with songwriting, which is a short, quick thing to write as a song. So the novel is such a long thing, to write, and it took me 5 years. Whereas a song, usually I write a song in 5 minutes, they just come. But with the novel, I think songwriting helped me to start writing songs before I started trying to write fiction. Yeah.
So you've written some short stories or something before you actually wrote the novel?
Yeah, I wrote Stickman as a short story about this little boy who has nightmares of this demonic Stickman.
Right.
He goes to church, and church should comfort us, but it scares him. He sees Jesus on the cross, the crucifix, and he has a nightmare where the beams from the cross turn into this man made out of sticks, and he has nails for fingernails, and he attacks him, and he's frightened, and he tries to face Stickman and defeat Stickman. And I wrote it as a short story, and a writer I really respected, a novelist who teaches writing at Santa Monica College, told me he loved the short story I wrote about Stickman, and he said, develop Stickman more.
Wow.
And it got me going, like maybe I could write a longer story about Stickman.
Wow,
yeah.
That's interesting. So originally you weren't going to do a novel, but from that he encouraged you to do that.
Yeah, I didn't think Stickman was really that good when I first wrote it. I was remembering I had night terrors as a boy that seemed so, I'd wake up and they'd be so vivid. I would see the monsters like they were right in the room. And I wanted to write a story about that. And my teacher at the writing class, who was a really respected writer, Jim Crusoe, said, write more about Stickman.
Wow!
He said, Stickman is such a powerful manifestation of these nightmares. It's like right out of your subconscious. Write more about Stickman. I said, well, okay, I'll write more about Stickman.
Now, I love this. I love this. Now, you have just sort of said, and I think I read one of your friends you probably reconnected with, maybe even on Facebook, who had read the book, and I think he had gone to college with you, and he was saying all of these things, and all of the people that are writing are writing positive things about this book. So you're really saying that this book has this main character has a lot to do with your life.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it is a novel, it is fiction, and there's a little disclaimer in the novel you always write, all characters are, any similarity, where is it? Any similarity to any real person's living or dead is purely coincidental, right?
Yeah.
This story is a work of fiction. Well, most of my friends are saying, yeah, right, Richard. I recognize this situation, this person, so Your first novel, I think for most writers, is somewhat inspired by your own life, semi-autobiographical. So Jeremiah is an alter ego for me in many ways.
Wow, that's interesting. So let me ask you, when you were writing this and you were thinking about different things that were going, it was bringing up, rekindling some childhood, a lot of things, maybe some places you didn't want to necessarily attack. What was it like bringing up these emotions?
It was like a therapy. It was like I was with a shrink or something. I mean, it was like this emotional catharsis, and people that read it tell me that too. They said, when I read your book, it was like I went back in my childhood and I got healing for some things, or I went through what Jeremiah went through. I was in this church where the pastor was this controlling man, and he had all these toxic teachings, and I had guilt and shame, or hey, you know what? I had a mentally ill parent like Jeremiah did in the book, and I had to deal with my parent going in and out of a mental hospital, it's helped a healing process for me, but also readers, because in a story I could say things I couldn't maybe talk about directly.
Yes.
There's different kinds of abuse that happens in this story. In this story is abuse of all kinds. And that's not what the story's about, but in a story I could talk about feelings that maybe directly it was hard to talk about in our family.
And on your journey of writing this book, because you've done something, now I don't know that a lot of people do this, but you've also done a soundtrack. And the soundtrack is doing very, very well.
Yes, it is.
It was in the top 10, I know.
Yeah, it was. It was on Amazon, like the books. And I was shocked when I saw it's hitting like 11, it's hitting the top 10. I thought, oh my, how are people buying my music?
Yeah.
I haven't done a music album since there were albums. Well, the last time I did music, it was a record. It was
I love it.
So this is my first CD. And I haven't put out a quote unquote album for like 14 years. But what happened was people that liked the book said, oh, I want to experience the music. And they said the music helped them kind of get in that whole story again of what Jeremiah goes through on his journey. He makes a journey from what I call fundamentalism to freedom, or guilt to grace.
Yes.
Because he starts under the thumb of a very fear-based religion.
I love it.
That God is like the Godfather. He makes you an offer you can't refuse. You don't do what he says, he's going to snuff you out. He's going to smote you and smite you. And so he has all this religious fear. But by the end of the book, he chooses to believe God is love. God forgives me. And he lets go of all that shame at the end of the book when he turns 21, and he's at peace with himself. He faces Stickman. He faces the fear.
Wow. And you know what? I remember there was one of the reviews from one of the writers. I think she had gone through some of the experiences. But she said, and what I remember, there's a scripture that I always say, train up a child the way he should go, and when he gets older, he won't depart from it. Now, although there was some problems in, I guess, the training, they would go away, people would, get away from religion or all of that, but then they would come back because they know how to now make it work for them. I think that was something that she was referring to in this book.
Yeah, it's some people throw out the baby with the bathwater because they have a bad experience with religion like Jeremiah did. They say, I'm not going to believe anymore. Whereas Jeremiah's journey, which is kind of like my journey really, is my relationship with God has changed. I worship and love a God now who loves everyone, who doesn't judge people. The old God that in fundamentalism we heard about was very angry and full of hate, and he only seemed to love certain people, so it changes, it evolves, it becomes something where you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
I see what you mean, yeah.
So I look at it now, like I went back on a lot of the things in the Bible and the things I was told, and it was like eating chicken. You keep the meat and you spit out the bones.
Yes.
You get rid of the stick man, the fear, but you hold on to loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself, and loving yourself, and the love remains. Like you talk about that in your show too.
Yeah,
love at the end.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, your book, do you see yourself writing another novel in the future?
Yes, I do. a lot of the fans of Stickman want me to write a sequel to Stickman, and because they want to find out what happens to Jeremiah, because he falls in love with a girl named Angel, and they wonder, well, will he ever get with Angel, or will he get with someone new? And what will happen to Angel, or what will happen to Savannah, the different characters in the book? So sometimes I'll ask the readers, well, what do you think happens to him? And it's interesting because they'll tell me things they think will happen to him next. So I'm letting it. It's like bread in the oven. I'm letting it take time to rise and not take it out soon. But I want to think about what happens to him next, because he's 21 at the end of this book.
Yes.
So I could write a series of books, about every decade of Jeremiah and the things he goes through. But at this point, I have so much fun when I ask people, well, what do you think will happen to him next? And hear their different takes on it.
I love it. So now I know that you're a director too. Could you see yourself directing it?
Yes, I want to make a movie of Stickman. I definitely want to make a movie of Stickman. There's an unofficial rumor, I can't confirm or deny it,
I love it.
Justin Bieber wants to play Jeremiah.
Yes!
Who knows? Some people are like, some people are like thumbs up on that, some people are like thumbs down.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure because it's only a rumor I've read articles about, and who knows. But I think this would be a great part for a young actor, and there's a lot of great parts in it. So at some point, when I'm ready to make a film, I want to put out the word to all my actor friends that we'd like to make a film about this, and maybe shoot it in my hometown. Who knows?
I love it.
Where it took place.
And there's always something that I ask for somebody who might be wanting to write a book or something like that, or somebody. What would you tell them? Because they always sometimes put things off or something.
Yeah.
How would you tell them to go about? What kind of words would you say to encourage, or say, oh, don't even bother? What would you say?
Well, I would encourage anybody out there that everybody has at least one book in them, number one. And there's a verse in the Bible that says in Psalm 45, your tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Just start writing. If you write even a little bit a day, think about it. Now, it took me 5 years, but a person could write a book like this in 1 year. I mean, this is like, this book, how many pages? It's 392 pages. So if you wrote a page a day, in a year you'd have a book about that size when you think about it, But I would encourage you, we are now in a time where artists can do things themselves. They can publish through Amazon on createspace.com. They can, you can make a film with a digital camera and edit it on your computer on Final Cut Pro. So we are in an era where do the work, write. Don't worry about, will I sell it to the studios, will I find a publisher? Just create it, and if you build it, they will come. If you write it, then you'll find a way to put that book out.
I love it. I love it. And then just one other thing, for somebody, because we know about Stickman, tell them just one reason why they should go out and get this book.
Well, it's going to be a great journey, and some people have come from backgrounds of religious legalism and fundamentalism, and they'll really relate to that story. But even if a person hasn't come from that background, they will understand it better reading this story. And the lessons he learns about life and love, at the end of the book, he realizes he's okay by himself. He doesn't have to have this girl he's obsessed with to be happy. He says, for instance, I'll just read something really quick. He says, for a while I dreamt of a half heart floating like a kite through a storm. A warm wind blew Angel's half heart to me, and we fit like two pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. But now I know two halves can never make a whole. Only two whole people can sustain a partnership. As long as I could remember, I had a solitary pain, bleak and basic. I was terrified to be alone. But now, for the first time, I liked being by myself. I enjoyed the quiet of my apartment in a way I never had. I listened to the sound of my own breathing. I experienced the magnificence of my own solitude. And so many people, they're looking for that lover, they're looking for that thing on the outside to fill them up. So what he learns, I think everybody can benefit from that, to learn how to be at peace just with yourself, And then you have so much more to give to the world, to somebody else,
I love it. Oh, Richard, man, I'm so glad you came.
Oh, I'm so glad you invited me. Thank you.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. All of Richard Rossi's information is right here of where you can get Stickman, a coming-of-age novel, and the musical soundtrack as well. And I have one thing I have to say. before we let Richard get out of here, and that is, Richard, I want to say thank you for kicking it with me.
It was great to kick it with you. All right.
I love it. Thanks, man.